We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Welcome back to Weed Talk News. This is the C Block, or final section of our weekly roundup of cannabis news from coast to coast. I'm Alaina Pinto. The state of Hawaii has enacted some social reform legislation designed to expunge the records of nonviolent past cannabis crimes. But what's going on with the publicly traded stocks in the cannabis industry? We know Doug Miller watches these on a daily basis. Here's this week's High on Wall Street.
I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's cannabis stock report for Weed Talk News. SNDL, formerly known as Sundial, is a Canadian marijuana and alcohol company that has been buying up companies for a couple years now. It recently acquired the debt of Delta 9 Cannabis for $20.6 million and entered a stalking horse agreement to purchase distressed edibles makers Indivior. So let's see how the stock chart's looking. It's trading around $2.15, and it's been running up. Look for it to pull back some to get a better price because it is bullish. And that's this week's Cannabis Stock Report. Reporting for Weed Talk News, I'm Doug Miller.
The state of Arkansas has got some serious momentum to improve their existing medical program. Our newest correspondent is Kevin Shakir. His brand, the Shakeman.
Hey, everybody. This is the Shakeman, Kevin Shakir, for Weed Talk News. And we're giving the Arkansas report. We have Dr. Mary Clifton here, and she's going to talk about Swifty.
Swifty Med. We've been new in Arkansas since January. We offer a $49 medical card with no upcharges and no additional hassles. Perfectly compliant with all the state and DEA and federal requirements to get you your medical card, and safely and conveniently. We do pop-up card clinics all over the state of Arkansas. So look for a clinic near you and save your money.
Yes, that's right. Make sure that you save your money. And again, Swifty Meds, they're going to be around for you. And Arkansas, we need to support this industry and Dr. Mary Clifton here.
Very exciting with the new legislation that you have coming in the fall. So make sure to vote. You'll be able to get your cards telemedically. You won't have to be seen in person any longer, and your cards will be good for 1 year if this new legislation comes through. In addition to some testing and regulations that will be placed on the industry overall to make your cannabis safer and better than ever in Arkansas.
And we need that. You know that we do, so support, vote. Again, Kevin Shakir, a.k.a. the Shakeman, for We Talk News. And now back to Alaina Pinto.
Now it's time to take a look at the international scene. In Switzerland, a group there is conducting a 6-month study on the impact of adult use sales. Over 700 people are enrolled in the study, and 80% of those in the study are males aged between 23 and 27. The study is looking at consumption patterns and ties to any social impact, particularly behavioral changes in public safety and order. The first 6-month results were released, and there is a trend towards flower and hash in the first 4 months of the study. Now that is changing towards edibles, tinctures, and extracts for vaping. And the study continues, but it matched much of the data from more mature markets in the US and Canada. Flower is king. And as more products are introduced, consumers are looking for more controlled microdosing and a better experience. And there's one country that was the first G7 one in, and that's Canada. And that's where Debi Facey reports from every single week.
This is Debbie with We Talk News, coming at you with the Canadian Straight of the Week. So what we have this week is OCS coming out with a much better, I want to say, program when it comes to the LPs, and that's going to help with their flow through. So it's going to minimize the amount of taxes that they have to pay. And on top of that, it's going to include them being able to have less product sitting in their facilities, less product sitting on the shelves, less products being recalled back, and less product being burnt at the end of the year. This is something that we are hoping will be a benefit to many of the LPs and dispensaries, especially due to the fact that the flow through will help many of the strains that maybe aren't necessarily selling fast enough to be able to be turned over for the facilities to be able to pop out something that is going to be more beneficial for them. Next, what we have is the expansion of the micro-processing here in Canada. So that means that some of the LPs are now going to be able to do micro grows. The micro grows are going to be on a smaller scale, and it's also going to be more geared to craft. That is going to be something that is going to be a great thing for us, especially if you are into certain strains that you can't necessarily get due to the fact of the LPs not producing them. But with the micro grows, having a little bit more flexibility when it comes to their actual square footage, we're going to be hopefully able to see a little bit more of those well-known strains that we all love. And last but not least, the Calgary Stampede that ran from July 4th to the 14th. July 4th to the 14th, 2024. For the first year, had a consumption lounge. This is something that festivals, especially here in Canada, are trying to implement due to the fact that there are tokers, but we also want to make it a little bit more, not inclusive, but more of an everyday sort of experience where it's not necessarily frowned upon anymore, but it is understood. Also, at the same time, it's respected by all of the other attendees, so no one's being smoked up, smoked out, and not enjoying themselves. This is Debi Facey with the Canadian Strain of the Week. Peace.
Every week, we like to share a clip from one of the most popular cannabis talk shows in the nation, Cannabis Legalization News, with Thomas Howard and his sidekick co-host Miggy 420.
We want to talk about some new trend in cannabis legalization news that has to do with what Congress is doing with their budget. It's appropriation season. And if you remember or a subscriber of the channel, you've heard me and Miggy talk about how the legislative process works quite a lot. And this has something to do with that. We're going to dive into it. We see Republicans in Congress trying to rein in several aspects of the cannabis plant, hemp, and also marijuana. So let's dive in. Here we are on the appropriations website. This was a hearing that happened in committee just this week here on July the 9th. And then, of course, they create records and then they publish them for all of us to see so that we can participate in this little thing we call democracy. We still think are a democracy. One of the things that they've done in this committee, and this committee is Commerce, Justice, and Science and Interior Environment, and Water Development. And so the Justice Department has a committee for funding it. They had this hearing. They've added new sections to the budget. Two in particular. One is an OG of cannabis law, the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment, as it's traditionally known. That's not necessarily what it is on an annualized basis, because as it is a section in the budget, it needs to be negotiated and renewed on an annual basis. Let's go to its markup and then discuss the things that have been passed by this committee. Now, the committee has passed it. It's moving toward becoming law. After it gets out of committee, eventually it can get to the floor. And then the Democrats in this committee were not successful at having this new ban on spending government money on rescheduling cannabis to Schedule 3, which of course the Department of Justice and the Attorney General and the DEA, all in the same administrative area of the government, have the ability to spend that money on moving it to Schedule 3. This new section that may become law in the next budget year, which starts on October 1st. So it never really gets done, though, by the time the budget expires. They have what they call continuing resolutions, and eventually the budget will probably get passed. It may be after January 20th. We don't know. I highly doubt they'll shut the government down, but they have before. Okay, let's go to these new sections that they've added and discuss how the prohibition against encroaching on states' rights has started to get a little wonky and shown the Republicans' hypocrisy. Okay, and so here we are. This is the one from June 24th that they put forward, and then they just passed on July the 9th. This is what the budget is going forward for the Department of Justice. They say right here in section 623, none of the funds appropriated or otherwise made available by this act may be used to reschedule marijuana, as such term is defined in section 102 of the Controlled Substances Act, and then they cite it, or to remove marijuana from the schedules established under section 202 of the Controlled Substances Act, and then they cite it. They are trying to use like the Rohrabacher-Farr's defunding of the Department of Justice and weaponize it not to allow the states to act as the laboratories of democracy. And it's kind of hilarious. This is coming from the purportedly states' rights conservatives. You know, in states' rights conservatives, it's just code for like racist policies, it seems, because when it comes to like certain female rights or when it comes to marijuana rights, then, and this was in the record that is in the markups and the votes they took on July the 9th, you can listen to it if you really want. The Republicans were very upset that there's this hodgepodge of like states not enforcing federal law. Oh, go figure. However, you know, only one Republican spoke out against this to allow the states to have the ability to enact their own medical marijuana programs.
I'm Jimmy Young, founder of Pro Cannabis Media, a production group that tells the stories of the cannabis industry in their own words. So, thank you, DEA, for allowing the public to comment on the proposed rescheduling of cannabis to Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substances Act. Now, I'm asking you that you embrace the initiative and the findings of the Health and Human Services to move this plant medicine off the most restrictive Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act and to Schedule 3. Like many in the industry, I too think it should be completely descheduled because this will be the first plant medicine to be controlled by the government on Schedule 3. We consider this plant a medicine and not a drug, making that distinction between synthetic cannabinoid creations and the natural plant medicine that has been used for thousands of years medicinally. In fact, I believe all drugs on the CSA should be reviewed and placed in new proper scheduling categories that fit its effects based on the science and research that exists now. Think about the CSA origins with the disgraced President Richard Nixon, who signed that bill into law in 1970. Do you think we've learned more about these substances over the past few decades? Of course we have. The placement of cannabis in Schedule 1 alongside heroin, LSD, and ecstasy, showed a total misunderstanding of the plant and how people have used it medicinally for centuries. Did you know that graduates of our oldest medical schools wrote 5 million prescriptions for cannabis between 1900 and 1910? Now, most of those were written prior to 1906, when cannabis was listed as a poison before the passing of the Pure Food and Drug Act, paving the way for prohibition. Prohibiting it, however, was even more of a mistake because that decision was based on money, greed, preserving the pulp industry, maintaining racial segregation in the South, and growing distrust towards the anti-war protesters at that time. Mr. Nixon referred to those as long-haired hippies of the 60s. Now imagine if it wasn't banned in 1937. Every doctor, nurse, and researcher who I've interviewed confirmed my belief that we would have less cancer, less autism, less epilepsy, Crohn's disease, and many other autoimmune disorders. That Schedule 1 listing is supposed to list drugs that have no medicinal value that can be highly addictive. Once again, it makes even more, it all ridiculous, basically, that this plant has been vilified for as long as it has been. Look at the number of lives lost on opioids, and that's a Schedule 2 drug? The demonization of this plant medicine that has saved thousands of lives is rooted in race, nepotism, power, and money. It's time to change federal law and put one regulatory board in control of the cannabis sativa plant for both the hemp versions and the current Delta-9 THC plant, now legal in 24 states and decriminalized in 38. Let the newly created Federal Regulatory Commission deal with the FDA, the US AG, ABC, and of course the DEA over federal regulations for the industry. Now, Senator Chuck Schumer's CAOA bill in the Senate calls for the establishment of a regulatory group that could help guide proper, realistic, and fair regulations for the various derivatives that come from the cannabis sativa plant. The fact that the intoxicating cannabinoid THC is a buying decision by the uninformed public, and the fact that our elected officials think that limiting the percentage amount in these products will keep the public safer is ridiculous. Learn about the entourage effect and the endocannabinoid system, and how it is absorbed in the human body, so you can make the proper informed decisions about regulating the plant medicine we call cannabis sativa. We all in the industry have an obligation to educate the public, and especially our elected officials who are not taking the time to read the overwhelming anecdotal evidence now supported by science and research regarding the benefits of responsible use of this product. Please educate them that this is not a gateway drug, and in fact, it is more of an exit drug for dangerous, more prescribed drugs like the opioids that are killing young people. Now, the entire text of this rant for the PCM public comment is available on our LinkedIn page and our website. For now, I'm PCM founder Jimmy Young. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. Please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And finally tonight, despite all the doom and gloom in the industry right now, there is still plenty of hope. In fact, the Straits Research Group in the financial sector is predicting that the global cannabis market will balloon to $77 billion by the year 2032. That is a very optimistic number, but it's a number that continues to grow by 18% every year. So hopefully the industry will be thriving again in 8 years. That's this week's Weed Talk News. I'm Alaina Pinto. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly, and we will see you next time.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Coming up on We Talk News this week, WNBA superstar and Olympic champion Brittany Griner gets busted at a Russian airport for carrying hash oil.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alaina Pinto, and this is Weed Talk News.
Hey, everybody. It's Brandon Jones with Big Green Distribution with the Missouri Cannabis Report.
I'm Karen Black from Green Finger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report.
I'm Matthew Friedlander, coming to you from the owner's office here at Skagit Organics.
I'm Amy Carter from Michigan Weedsters.
My name's Tom. You can find me over at Cannabis Legalization News.
I'm Jill Goldsberry with We Talk News New Jersey, and we are back.
Andrew Behringer here reporting from Washington, D.C.
Our Canadian correspondent with We Talk News, Debi Facey with the Canadian Toke of the Week.
I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's Cannabis Stock Report for Weed Talk News.